Looks like they're actually.
Oh, I didn't see you said, we need, make that 8, Rebecca, not 6. I bad counted.
Sound like straight up bullshit.
Oh, okay. I got the blue shirt.
I'll disable your shit.
Uh-huh.
I'll disable your shit.
Oh, no, there's a, it's almost there anyway.
It ain't gonna take much.
Alright. Take one, pass it around. Take one, pass it around. I need all pins back. Please. Here. Take one back. Pins are scarce in this office. Rebecca keeps them locked up, so.
Oh, these are nice ones, too. Right on the board. I got one.
Somebody else need a pen?
No, sir.
Alright, everybody got their donuts? Can't believe I don't see more Red Bulls. That's okay, guys, thank you for being here on a Friday morning. I wanna congratulate you for being in this seat, this opportunity that you have. And this is probably safe to say the only landscaping company in Pensacola that is doing this right now, this morning, with this many people, okay? This is a rare opportunity for each one of you to elevate yourself here and personally. For those of you who don't know, this is Kevin Tuttle. He's been a mentor of mine for over a year. He has helped me grow as a leader and a person. And he is here, we're gonna double team this and talk about some leadership training. What has prompted this meeting is the vacancies in crew leads. On the landscaping side, we have 3 positions that need to be filled. On the lawn care side, we have 4. There are way more than 7 people in this room, and not everybody is going to get this position. However, I hope you use what you learn here as an opportunity to grow. Because those of you that do not get this position, there will be another swing at the ball. Those of you that do get this position, it is yours to lose or yours to keep. This is not, we're electing you and you're there for the next year. This is, you get it because you've earned it, and you keep it because you're doing a good job, alright? All of our foremen, and I want to use the word foreman, if I say crew lead, I mean the same thing, are rated on communication and leadership, technical skills, and the ability to adapt and overcome, and your production, right? So that's what we're going for here. What we learn in these leadership meetings, I hope everybody can apply to work and apply to their life. And what I've learned over the last several years trying to grow this business with some awesome team members is leadership is a lifestyle. It's not a one-time thing. I'm far from perfect. These 2 guys have been with me longer than anybody else, and they'll tell you that. But I think they would also tell you that I try as hard as I can every day. I try to live with integrity. I try to be honest. If I've done something wrong, I make amends, right? I take ownership of these things. And guys, everybody here over the next 6 months especially is going to be challenged. I'm going to be asking more of everybody on this team, and it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be doing things, not necessarily at work, like the physical work that you're doing, but the communication, the emotional side, the interpersonal side. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be things that you've never done before, most likely. For me, it's been a process. The last decade of my life has been starting in the back of a Prius that my mom gave me because I didn't have a car, with a weed eater, a mower, and a blower that she bought me because I didn't have the cash to buy a handheld blower, to where we are today. And that didn't just happen because we got the business, right? That happened because I had to learn how to grow. And part of that, a big part of that for me, is asking for help, right? I don't know everything. The more I know, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So that's a big part of this, is being open-minded enough to learn what you can and apply it to your life, whether it's at work or at home, preferably both, and make gradual improvements day after day, right? That's one reason I've hired Kevin to help me learn, because I want to be the best leader that I can be for all of you and for my family. I would say the most important part of leadership for me is knowing when to ask for help. I ask pretty much all of you for help all the time. I ask these two guys for help daily. Same with Craig, same with Joe. Almost every day with Kevin. I'm starting to annoy him a lot more. I ask Rebecca for help. I ask my wife for help. I call other business owners and say, hey, how did you do this? I call our competitors and say, hey, will you help us? There's no shame in that. Okay? So what we're going to do in this meeting is Kevin's going to talk about a couple leadership ideas. He's got some information for you. I've got some information for you. And we're probably going to be out of here in the next 30, 40 minutes. This is not going to be a super long meeting, but at the end, we are going to open this up. This is
Let's say an hour, let's set proper expectation.
an hour? Yeah, he can talk, so make it an hour. All right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna bounce back and forth, y'all stay with us, there will be some interaction, there will be some writing. And then afterwards, anybody has questions for us or individually, we'll do that, okay? But I'm really grateful that everybody is here, even those that weren't planning on being here. I think you're gonna learn something from it, because I want this to be a company that there's opportunity for everybody, okay? Kevin,
Thanks.
tag.
Ted, what Dylan didn't tell you is that his mom wanted to kick him out of the house, so she gave him a mower and a car. 21 years old, working in a sweatshop. We worked in a building that was 300 yards by 200 yards in a manufacturing company, and OSHA required the horn to blow when it hit 119 degrees. That's where I started my life. At 21, I was offered an opportunity into leadership, which I didn't know what leadership meant. I thought it was just, okay, I can move up, I can be in management. The word that they used was management. But I got offered this position, and it was the scariest thing that I ever did. 90% of the people, I'll wait till we're done.
That's fine. Well, it's a whole packet, guys. Did I miss anybody? No. There you go.
Cool, thanks. So I was saying, I was 21, and 90% of the people that I work with were a lot older than me. Think about that, right? And they were much more experienced than me, and they had been in the company a lot longer than me. I just busted my ass. That's all I did. They said, hey, by the way, why don't you go ahead and you can go up to leadership. Scariest thing I ever did, they never gave me any inclination of what to do or how to do it. They just said, now you're stepping up. And I still feel great. The reason I'm here today is so you don't go through what I went through. What does that mean? How does it work? Leadership has to be trained. Who in here can tell me what leadership means to them? And by the way, I'm gonna do this to you all day. I'm gonna make you feel uncomfortable, and I'm gonna ask you questions. Typically, there's three things that are gonna happen. There's three different types of people sitting in this room, okay? The first type of person in this room is gonna be like, I'm gonna answer that. It's gonna be uncomfortable, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna answer it. Then there's the people in the middle that are gonna take a moment and be like, man, should I answer that question? I think I'm just gonna sit and be quiet. And then there's a third of you that's in this room that is just completely checked out and you're not gonna hear a word I say. Statistically, that's how it works. We'll know by the end of this which group is which. So I do wanna ask a question. What is the definition, do you guys believe, of leadership? What do you think that is? What does that mean to you? And by the way, if you don't volunteer, you'll be voluntold. Anybody, what is leadership? What is the definition? And you use any term you want, there's no right or wrong, I'm just gonna see where your brain is on leadership.
Helping, guiding,
Okay? Good.
being responsible.
Yeah, all right.
Head of a team,
Say again?
the head of a team.
Okay, head of a team. That's more of a position, but okay, yeah.
Setting an example.
All right, cool.
Being accountable for everybody on your crew.
That's a good one.
Helping
Yeah.
everybody achieve their greatest potential. Being able to teach others what you know.
Yeah, you guys are getting right at it. You know, it's interesting, does anybody know the difference between leadership and management? This is really confusing. Even when you go to school for this, they teach you management. Management is learning your vocational skills. It's like, hey, what reports do I need to get done? What time do I need to show up? It's more like babysitting as management. Right? It's like, hey, do this, follow this, and do this. And just so you know, management is a piece of cake. Leadership is hard, and nobody teaches these skills. Leadership is the human skills, not your vocational skills. These are the human skills, someone in here said it, about coaching and bringing other people to their best selves. That's what leadership is. Let me be very clear with you. Leadership is the skill of influence. I've had people say to me before, oh, well, that doesn't make sense. Influence, what does that mean? Well, influence is where you help others get to where they want to go. Manipulation is where you help others get to where you want to go. But influence is about helping others, and leadership is about helping others. What's interesting, when you get into leadership, you have a lot more responsibility, but you also have a lot more autonomy. You have the ability to be heard, make decisions on the fly, on the go, and within guidelines, obviously. So there's a step up that this requires. It's not just knowing your skill to the best it is, but it's helping somebody else. I think one of the things about leadership, if you look at it, it's not being in control. It's taking care of those in your control, right? Who said team? You said team, or coach, or you said, someone over it, you did, didn't you? So, think about that. Let me ask you this, when you have a team, the most important thing on that team, and by the way, every single one of you in here have had a job before this one, yes? Yes? Okay. Yes or yes? You guys have seen bad teams, right?
Yeah.
You know what it feels like, and it sucks. Everybody's out for themselves, nobody cares about each other, and the boss just sits around and tells you what to do and screams at you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen here, because that's not what it's about. You gotta have each other's back. The most important aspect of the team is having each other's back. Who can define that for me? What does that mean to have someone's back? What does that mean to you?
So you
Help
have
them
to have
succeed.
person
Yeah.
at all times.
Okay, to be there for them. What else?
Being supportive.
Okay, supportive. What else?
Speaking up for them when they can't speak up for themselves.
Okay, what else?
Extra mile,
Say that?
going the extra mile.
I'm just gonna keep making you talk because your voice sucks. Okay, go on the extra mile. What else? Anything?
Showing up for them when they need you.
There you go. Here's what's interesting. If you're a leader of a team, the number one thing that you have to build is courage in your players, in your people, in your team. You know that? People don't have a lot of courage that they're given by themselves, but you can gain courage by having somebody stand next to you. The number one way to build courage in another person, to be a coach, to be a leader, to be able to do that, is to have their back. If If you wanna be a high diver and dive off the cliffs in Mexico into the water at 61 feet in the air, which by the way, it's like hitting concrete when you jump off that level, I can teach you how to do it. And I can walk you right to the edge, but I'm not gonna dive for you. And I'll stand right there next to you and say, you got this, I've seen you do it. You believe in somebody more than they believe in themselves, that's a coach. That's having someone's back. And the second side of that coin is if and when they fail, which they will, then you're the one that's standing next to them and said, I got you. That's all right, let's go do it again. That's a leader. That's a true leader. That's the aspect of what you are. So Dylan talks about the crew leads and the foreman. I don't care what title you paint this with, whether you're a project manager or foreman, or you end up being a crew lead that's under a foreman, or you're just a crew member at this point, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you will operate as a team, because as a team, when you operate, you'll be able to be greater efficient, make more money, and enjoy your life and your business more. If you don't like your job, and are you ready for this statistic? You hear this one? Stanford University just did a study, and they came out in January of 25, and they said that 68% of the people in this country, in the United States, do not like their job. And if you don't like your job and you're here for 40 hours a week, how are you gonna treat your family? What are you gonna feel like when you go home? Not the person that walks home and kicks the dog, right? And then that affects everybody around you. So how you are as a crew lead is how your team will be. There are no bad crews, there's only bad leaders, right? So what I'm here to do over the next year is help this organization scale and grow. And to do that, we have to have what is called the depth of the bench. And the depth of the bench is an overlay. It's an overlay of how do we move up. We're sitting here talking today about 7 positions that are open, 4 on one side, 3 on the other. And then when we double our size, there'll be 10 positions open. And when we double that size, there'll be 20 positions open. So no matter where you sit and what you want, this is the direction we're heading. Here's a number for you.
Blue, let's use blue. Well, now let's use this one.
That's light.
It's blue.
Anybody know what that number represents? Yeah, okay. That's the number of landscaping companies in Santa Rosa County. Wow. It's 142. Anybody know what that number represents?
Is that what we're saying?
16 biggest numbers.
That's the number of landscaping companies that are operating above 20 employees. Why am I telling you that? Because you're sitting in a seat that is an elite seat. And we're just getting started. Okay? Now, when I say just getting started, 7 years ago is when it's 7? Yeah, 7 years ago, in the vehicle that Mom gave him so he could get the hell out of the house. Now, we're here. And to do that, and to go where we wanna go, it creates an opportunity for everybody that's under this roof. And the question is, what responsibility are you willing to take to get to that opportunity, to have a better life, to have more money? So you have to learn new things. And learning new things is not easy. I'll be honest with you, it's a bitch. Your mind of what you saw, what got you here today, is not gonna get you where you wanna go tomorrow. Let me be very clear with you. The moment you stop learning, you start dying. Everything is about moving forward in your life. You should be willing and wanting to be better than you were yesterday, no matter where you're sitting, no matter how you got here, no matter where you are. Dylan mentioned that leadership is not just about work. Leadership is every day, everywhere you go. It's everything you do. It is the skill of influence helping other people. It is not simply just, can we go ahead and turn that off? Yeah, let's do that. I think the most important thing, when you look at the sheet that you have in front of you, you got areas for notes. I'm sure you work for other organizations, and if you feel that you wanna take notes on anything that is said here, go ahead and write them down so you can remember, or things that we talk about, because I'm gonna ask you some questions. But there's a lot of organizations out there that say, well, and by the way, just so you guys get an idea, I've been in business for 33 years, right, so I'm gonna date myself, I'm 5 years old. And I've ran businesses from anywhere in between $500,000 to $500 million. And my job is to make sure that small businesses can scale and grow. We are 36% of the US economy, right? The back of this country is built on small businesses. Just to give you another frame, small businesses, there's 14 million in the United States. We make up 98% of the businesses. The 2% are the ones that are above the small business, which is above $6 million in gross revenue. So we are the majority out there. So we have to protect ourselves, we have to grow, and the idea is that we bring people to the next level so we can survive, and we can survive and grow into the bigger one, into the bigger companies. Every time I meet with a client, I hear this: how do I get more out of my employees? I can tell you right now, that's the biggest joke I've ever heard. I'm like, okay, what are they, a sponge? You're gonna wring them out until they go dry? What does that even mean? So I want you to be very clear that leadership, the way that you can get the most out of your employees is you pour everything into them. You don't squeeze them, you pour into them. What do they need? How do they need to grow? How do they need help? What are they struggling with? If you solve that, you solve all issues, right? And that is your responsibility as a leader, to have that frame of mind. Because one of the most difficult things in getting into leadership is changing your frame of mind. A lot of times, and I know what happens, look, I was the same way, is what's in it for me? What's in it for me? What about me? Look at me, this is a tough job. And then we sit there, we get ourselves in a mindset of like, oh, screw this, and what about this? And there is no room for that in leadership, none, zero, zip, there is none. You take all ownership for everything that happens, not only with you, but for your team. And in doing that, you protect your team. And guess what happens? You protect your team, what are they gonna do? They're gonna protect you. And in protecting you, you guys all fight for the exact same thing. In leadership, there's something that's called creating camaraderie. One of the greatest things that pull a team together is camaraderie. To add camaraderie together, what's really important is you only need two things for camaraderie. Two things, that's it. Can anybody guess what those two things are to have camaraderie on a team? It's not easy, so I thought I'd ask. That's a good word, that's awesome. Close, yeah, unity's good. What is it?
Relationship.
That's a good one, relationship is good.
Common cause or challenge,
Say it again?
common cause or challenge.
Is that on the sheet? Yeah, you gotta have a common worthy cause or a common challenge. If you are fighting with somebody against something, you have that camaraderie beginning. But in camaraderie, the number two thing you have to have, you can have a common challenge and a common cause. We're gonna go get this, we're gonna tackle that hill, common cause. Common challenge, we're gonna fight this battle. You gotta have either one of those things. And by the way, in leadership, they come up every single day. But on the back side of that is you have to have their back. You gotta know that you're willing to go where they're gonna go, and they're gonna go where you're gonna go. You've got to have the other person's back. That builds camaraderie. That is a team that will protect itself. If I went out and I hired somebody and I said, Dylan, I want you to hire this person and I want you to put it on your crew. And your crew is tight, and that person shows up and they're a shit show. What is your team gonna do? Get that guy off my team. That team will protect itself at all costs. They'll either fold them in and say, all right, I got your back, but you better bust your butt, because this team is an A team. A players do not play with B players, and B players do not play with A players. It's a known fact. And you will have a team, and you're gonna build a team, and what's gonna happen is you're gonna see a B player show up on your team, and you're gonna go, You give them a shot, try to mold them, teach them, try to fold them in, try to build them, and then they're gonna go, you ain't cutting it. And then whoever the foreman is and the crew lead's gonna come to Dylan, or it's gonna come to the PMs, and they're gonna say, hey, by the way, I've done everything I can, but they ain't cutting it. And you have that authority to bring that to attention, because because that's what you get as a leader. You get to determine how fast you're going and how you're gonna run that race. Is everybody clear on that?
Yes, sir.
I think that's really important. I'm trying to look at your sheets and my sheets, so. One of the things that I wanna bring up is just some techniques and tools about being a leader. Now, over time, this is just an introduction into leadership. We're gonna go over this stuff, but for those of you who make the cut now, and for those of you who make the cut later, because there's only so many spots, we're gonna go over this all the time. To shift your mindset in leadership, there's 4 components. There's 4 things that you need to focus on to go to the next level. And the first one is, guess what? You. You are the first component. If you don't change, nothing around you will change. So you've got to identify what you need to change, and we're gonna go through that today, or what those things are.
Kevin, sorry, Rebecca, could you bump the AC down for us, please?
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Sorry, Rebecca.
That's a one way of saying I'm full of hot air. So, I'm on part 2 in your sheet that's in front of me. So, in that, the 4 components of leadership is number 1 is you, it's the mindset shift. It's the ability to see from another person's perspective. Let's say that I'm a crew lead, one of my guys are out there and they're having a tough day. They're not cutting it, whatever reason it is. Do you yell at them, or do you go to them and say, hey, look, you're not operating at your normal par. How can I help you, and what's going on? Now you got their back. Now what happens day 2, there's another situation. If you can solve it, you can solve it, or you can elevate it, or at that point, day 3, it's a bigger issue, right? And then you can elevate that issue. But the point is, your mindset has to change about perspective. You have to look at things from another person's point of view. I'll give you another example for it. How many times you've been driving down the highway and you get road rage, you're pissed off about someone in front of you? Or how about that happen to you? One or the other, right? All right, well, maybe that person in that car is on the way to the hospital having a baby. You don't know. And you're all pissed off because they're trying to cut through traffic. You've got to have perspective. What's the point, right? It doesn't do you any good to get angry. Emotional control is one of the top things as a leader. And to have that frame and to continually have that frame, you gotta operate in a world of curiosity. Huh, I wonder why they're yelling. You know, when people are angry, 90% of the anger has nothing to do with you. Who does it have to do with? Themselves. They're pissed off at something, right? They wanna kick somebody because they're hurting inside, because something's happening. So you, as a leader, you cannot take this stuff personally. No matter how hard they yell and what they say, if you get defensive, you're not a leader. You're just engaging in an argument. Leaders will step above that. So that's number 1. That's you have to control. By the way, these things aren't easy. I'm gonna promise you that leadership and learning these skills is not easy, but they're practicable and you can learn them. Trust me, I was a hothead. I got mad at everybody all the time. Get out of my way, do this, do that. Become, leadership as a coach, number 2, we've already talked about it, so that's important, so it's number 2. Number 3, learn. The skill of influence is how you articulate and how you have conversations with others. This is something that we're gonna work on continuously. This is stuff that I work on with CEOs like Dylan. This is stuff that I work on with employees like yourself, management teams. This is a big skill. I'll give you an example. How many of you in here actually enjoy conflict conversations?
James.
Well, that's because you're married to Rebecca. So, conflict conversations are not easy to deal with, but there's an art to it. There's a way you can go through it. I'm gonna show you that art to make sure that you end up having a situation that can be resolved relatively quickly.
Can I interject?
Yeah, please.
So when I started working with Kevin, guys, he gave me a lot of books to read and podcasts to listen to. And I used to be a big reader, and I really wasn't for years. And I took his suggestion against I didn't want to.
Individual judgment.
My
let's say.
individual judgment, thank you. But over the last 6 months, what I've learned is what I put in my brain is what I get out perspective on my life, is what I'm feeding my brain. It's the strongest thing I have, period, right? It's not the business, it's not my body, it's my brain. So getting in that mindset of just continual improvement will help anybody, you know, and it has helped me a lot. So I just wanted to echo in there, chime in there, Kevin, thanks.
Imagine this. Imagine you spent every day eating ice cream and donuts. Never worked out. There you go. And what would you look like? And how would you feel?
Like my husband.
So, that's just your body. Where do you think that 70% of your energy goes every single day? What uses 70% of it? That's right, your brain does. Your brain does. And if you don't feed it, it will feed itself. Do you realize that if you don't close a loop in your brain and you just have this thought and it's just out there and you're not sure, you're unclear on the answer, you'll come up with an answer? And that answer, 72% of the time, is negative, is a negative frame. Because your body and your brain, from the Paleolithic age when you were running from tigers and lions, is geared towards safety, so your brain will lie to you. It's called an open loop. Why do you think that when Netflix comes out, people with a show, people will wait until all of the episodes are out before they start watching it? Why is that?
So binge watching.
Why do they binge watch it?
They don't want to wait.
Why don't they want to wait?
Impatient.
What else?
Conclusion.
There's no conclusion, and they all pissed off at the end. They're like, oh, what the hell's gonna happen next? And by the way, when the last one hits, they go, I hope there's not a new season, I need this to end. Don't leave me a cliffhanger, because your brain hates open loops. And what it will do is it will fill that open loop. So how do you fill that? You fill it with knowledge, you fill it with the things that you need to know. And that's why, I'll give you another statistic on this really quickly, and I'll try to make sure that I'm on some sort of a time. Do the math. People can read on average, whether you audible or whether you open a book, on average, about 150 to 200 words in a minute. It's a paragraph. I read a paragraph in a minute. So if you take 10 minutes a day, that's 2,000 words. If you take 2,000 words every day, 365 days, that's 750,000 words. An average book is 50,000 words. That's 15 books a year at 10 minutes a day. How much more better off do you think you would be if I told you right now you can change your entire life in 10 minutes a day? Would you do it? There you go, I just told you how to do it. I'm not a super genius by any means. I'm not actually the smartest guy in the room. I have to spend and focus my time so I can learn more. I'm somewhere in the area of 400 to 500 books in a lifetime. I read every single day, sometimes I'm in 2 or 3 books at a time, and it got to the point where I hated it, but I knew I needed it. Then it became a habit, and then it became a ritual. You know the difference between a habit and a ritual? A habit is something that, okay, you're gonna put in practice, you may not like to do, but a ritual gets to the point where you just do it no matter what, because you don't think about it. You know what a ritual? My 9-year-old, she's in a routine. It's RHR. If you guys want to write this down, so it's R is routine. That's how you start everything in life. Is an R. Well, my 9-year-old hates to brush her teeth. I don't know what it is. Like, dude, I don't get it. Why do kids hate to brush their teeth? So I give her the routine. Like, this is how you do it. You do it in the morning. You do it at night. You do it when you get up. You do it before you go to bed. No. Every day that's a reminder. And then eventually it'll become a habit. Right now for you, brushing your teeth, it's a routine. You get up, walk into the bathroom, grab a toothbrush, and brush your teeth. I hope nobody in here is leaning on the toothbrushes. Unless you got dentures and you just plop them in the jar. But my point to you is this. Anything that you want in life is on the other side of hard. Let me be very, very, very clear with you. You do not grow unless you do hard things. If you don't go to the gym, you're never gonna look like you go to the gym. If you don't control your diet, you're gonna look like you don't control your diet. Whatever you want in life is on the other side of hard. Whatever that thing is. So be very clear. Once you start doing hard things, you crave doing hard things, because not doing hard things is freaking boring. Every single morning, I get up at 4:10, every single morning, and at 4:20, I'm sitting in water that is 49 degrees for 10 minutes. Okay, it's called cold plunge. And then after that, I get out, and then I work out for an hour. Then after that, I meditate for 15 minutes, and after that, I read, and after that, if my daughters are up, and forget it for the rest of that time. And every time I get in that cold plunge, it sucks. It's horrible. It never gets better, ever, until you're in there for 45 seconds and you get a space that you're like, okay, this is it, I'm here. And it's a long story, but it's phenomenal for you. But the point is you don't get used to doing hard things, you're gonna quit early. And one of the things around here, and the things that we need to instill and make sure that you have, is grit. And grit can be learned, right? And grit's important. Grit is the ability to continue, even if you can't see or don't know where the end is. It is the ability to keep going in the fog because you have a belief in where you wanna be. Does that make sense? So that's the development learn and then development, which we already talked about, is build camaraderie. Let's talk about the part 3, human skills and vocational skills. We talked about it earlier. We talked about it. Number 1, human skill, you see as part 3, it says, giving clear directions and listening. You know what the hardest thing to do in the world is?
Listen.
Why?
Most people aren't active listening.
Say again?
Most people aren't active listening if they space out.
But they wanna talk about themselves.
What is people's favorite subject?
Themselves.
Me? Let me talk about me. It's great. I'll tell you all about it.
Yep.
Fantastic. Everybody's like, what the hell do I wanna know about you for? Unless you give me a reason. A lot of times it's because they don't have the vernacular. Let me explain that. You're listening to me right now. Let's say you and I were to have a conversation. It's about any subject whatsoever. You may be prefaced to a point where you're like, well, what am I gonna say after he says? Do you ever get to a point where someone's talking, you check out completely and think about what you're gonna say next? That's not listening, right? That's not and by the way, great word, it's active listening. Because there is listening, but are you really hearing, right? There's a big difference. It's an art, and yeah. Oh, I thought you said that. I was listening. Emotional control. Whew. This one is a bear. This is man, you know how hard it is to put your emotion in check when something pisses you off? Put that thing in a box. You know, instead of taking the swing or cutting back or, oh, you know what, you're wrong, I'm right. I'm gonna hit you right in the face with this one. This is gonna hurt. I'm gonna prepare you. It's gonna hurt. You ready? Why do you get to that point? And I'm not gonna have you guess, I'm just gonna tell you. Lack of self-confidence and lack of self-worth. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. So if you build your self-confidence, self-worth, what do you give a shit about what anybody else says about you or what they say in front of you? It's called detachment. It's understanding that they're in pain, not you. Don't worry if they attack. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't have to fight back. You don't have to get your pride and ego out of the way. The opposite side of ego is humility. You guys understand that? Can anybody tell me what empathy is?
Feeling other people's emotions.
Say that again?
Feeling other people's emotions.
What'd you say?
Being able to relate to somebody else's situations.
Understanding someone's struggle.
There it is.
It's in
Yeah.
the paper.
You guys are
They said that
cheaters.
was word.
I didn't.
So, yeah, I think the most important thing, one of the skills in leadership is to understand another person's perspective. Let's go back to the road rage. You have no idea, you're just guessing, right? You are just completely guessing. There's an old story about a fisherman in Japan. He got out in his boat, in a little tiny boat, and every day he'd go out fishing, he'd go down this river, and he'd go and throw his line out, and then every now and then a big ship would come the other direction, he'd go on the side, and the ship would go by, and he'd get back out, and he'd start fishing, and he'd go back and he'd feed his family. And this one day, he was going, and this ship was not stopping, it was coming directly at him, and he's yelling, and he is screaming, he's throwing things at it, and here it comes, and he's trying to get out of the way and it's coming towards him and he is just going bananas in everything he can. All of a sudden the ship gets up next to him and it runs up against the shore and he just realizes there's nobody on the ship broke loose. You know, sometimes we yell and scream, we have no freaking idea why we're yelling and screaming. It don't make no damn sense. Because if you operate in a world of curiosity, you operate like, I wonder why that's happening, it actually negates the frustration and it goes into a solution mode. Let's find a solution, and that's what leadership does. Accountability, we've already talked about it. I think what's important about accountability too, that you need to know, is that what your team does, protecting your team on what for they do, and two, what they do is to be able to describe what they do. That's ownership. You got them, you got their back, and you're there for every step of the way, no matter what they have to do. And then last is the coaching, and I think we talked about that a lot today, but coaching. And think about the greatest coach you've ever had, if you're ever in sports, or if you ever had a mentor, you ever had a great boss. And then ask yourself, as you sit in this chair right now, and I'm gonna loop on this, so you're sitting in this chair, and I do not need you to say this out loud. Would you work for you? I was a CEO of a company, we were running $250 million. And I had a gentleman that I hired as my coach. And he spent a week with me, didn't say a word, every day in and day out. And at the end of the week, he just asked me one question. And he said, would you work for you? And my answer was, running that company, no fucking way. That moment, you need to see who you are. You need to look in the mirror and be able to say, this is who I am, but this is who I want to be. And just so you know, that was 18 years ago. You can change. You can be whatever you want to be, because what got you here is in the rear view mirror. What is in front of you is out the windshield. So we need to stop looking behind us, say, I did that, that's where I got to where I'm at, and this is what I need to do. And I'm here to help you do that. Why? Because it's not easy. There's things you have to put in place to put things behind you, and be able to move forward. Clear? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Cool. I want to talk real quick about levels of mastery. When you learn something in life, it takes you, we did the football, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the mastery football that you did? You did it, right? Or did I do it, or you did it?
We both did it.
All right, do you guys remember? Who can tell me what the mastery football is? You want me to draw it?
Draw it, Kevin.
There you go, who said that? Oh. It's called the mastery football. Why is it called mastery football? I don't know, because it looks like football. Other than that, there's no other reason for it. So this line right here is the effort line. Which means that in the beginning, whatever you start, you're in a honeymoon state. This is great. I got a new job, I got a new girlfriend, I got a new whatever. I'm in the honeymoon state, so I'm gonna put in so much effort. I'm gonna look great when I get started. This is gonna be awesome. And what people believe is there's this weird trajectory that this just keeps on going. And that's not really how it works. What happens is that the honeymoon stage, your 20% is over, you're like, all right, I'm still increasing, I'm still putting in more energy. Okay, great. And this level right here is 100%. Okay? So now your effort over here is equal to 100%. But what happens right about in here to here, this is the quit zone. Why? Because this sucks. Why? Because what happens, this is the result line. And you put in all this effort and you're like, well, I'm not really getting shit for results. And then you're like, well, I'm putting way up, I'm at 50% of my effort of everything, and this, I'm barely moving over here. And you're thinking, why am I doing all this work? This is crazy. The amount of delta, the amount of growth I'm getting down here for the effort I'm putting in the South. And I'm from New York, by the way, so in the South, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. But what you don't realize is that all of a sudden, this starts to pick up. And the effort starts to, that's right, starts to go down. Means a little bit more effort gets you a longer and longer way. And all of a sudden, once you cross this 80% threshold, boom, the effort, or the result just takes off like a shot. It takes off like a shot. I'm gonna tell you a story. So I was out in Colorado for 7 years and I fancied myself a skier. So I went out and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get a coach. I wanted to become a really good skier. So I got myself a coach, and I ski at a place all the time. It's called Breckenridge. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. So there's this one mountain, you go up and you get off the ski lift. And when you get off, you're about 90% of the way up to the peak, but no lifts go to the peak. And I used to see these people walk up, and I'm like, they're nuts, man. That's insane. So I just get off the lift and I'd ski down, and I got my instructor, and I went up and we get off the lift, and he's like, all right, pop them. I'm like, what? Pop them? What the hell does that mean? He said, take your skis off. I'm like, for what? And he goes, because we're climbing to the top. I'm like, dude, it's not that much further. We still have a lot of run here. We don't have to climb to the top. You just take your damn skis off. Yes, sir. Skis go off, over the shoulder, hike up this thing, and it was a bear. And we get to the top. And I remember him saying to me on this climb, he said, you know, greatness is not about the distance. It's about the effort. I said, okay. It's like, all right, I kinda get that. We get to the top of the hill, and I'm looking across, and I see nothing but mountain peaks. I was like, holy crap. There's an old adage that says, at the peak of every mountain are more peaks. And he looks at me and he grabs me on the shoulder. He said, see those people down there? I said, yeah. He said, they will never see or feel what you see and feel at this very second, because they only went 80% of the way. That day changed my life. I knew for the rest of my life I will never stop at 80%. There's no freaking way, because the effort to go the rest is just a little bit more. And when you get there, things look completely different. So let's talk about it.
Can I chime in here, Kevin?
Please.
So guys, I've heard that story before, but that hits home with me, and one thing I wanted to say at the beginning of this is I've had those shitty bosses. I've had a lot of them. And I didn't set out with this business one day and have this vision to be where we're at today, but along the way, I wanted this to be a place where everybody can win. And I know enough about the world now to know that most people are walking around asleep. Most people are walking around stuck down here, restarting over and over and over. Or maybe they had a bad childhood, maybe they made some bad decisions, maybe they just don't know what to do, you know? But most of us have a lot of room for growth, and we have massive amounts of potential to make impacts on other people, right? Positive impacts. For me, what keeps me going in the morning is trying to help other people. It's having a purpose bigger than myself. That's what I want this company to be, okay? Is a place where we can all grow, we can all learn, and reach our potential. Or reach our potential at work and continue to grow, whether it's here or somewhere else, you know? I'm sure not all of you will be here in a year. I hope you are, but probably not. But while you're here, as long as you're here, I want this to be a place that we can learn and help each other. Besides just come to work for a paycheck, okay? So that hit home with me, because this world needs help. We all need help. Back to Kevin, thanks.
Yeah, you know, I'll go off your frame. This is your mastery limits, okay? And this, it's in your document. So here, this is poor. And by the way, the 7 people that make it, that on this first round until we need more, you're gonna suck at being a foreman. You're not just gonna come out of the gate and like, I'm great, you're gonna fuddle around, you're gonna fumble the ball, but that's okay, it's to be expected. So here, this is poor. What's interesting about poor is that the gap difference to get to fair is huge, but it doesn't take that long. You can get to fair pretty quick. So you go to poor and fair, like, okay, I get this, all right. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to accelerate this. How? Because we're gonna stand next to you, because why? Because we got your back, okay? And in that, to go from fair to good, it's not as much of a distance, right? It's a little bit less of a distance. What's interesting, the higher you go up the ladder, the closer the rungs get. So now you're at good, but here's the problem, and I'll go to what Dylan said. Most of the people walk through the world asleep. You can take your life, and you have two choices to make. You can operate your life by choice or default. Do you wanna decide what you're gonna do, or do you wanna live your life in default? And by the way, folks, 80% of the people are lemmings. They live their life in default. They wait, well, this is what life is doing, so I guess I have to react to life. They're not proactive and say, screw that, I'm doing this. They think that their life is circumstantial. So they come up with all these excuses. Well, my family, my life, my money, my blah, 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 blah. And then they get themselves into a position where they're like, well, I guess this is it. And they get stuck. And they don't do anything else. And that's nothing more than the way that you see the world. Because this, good, and you guys have heard this, is the enemy. This is outstanding. Whoops. Or great. Good is the enemy of great, because this is where people will stop. Well, I'm good enough. How's your day? How many times do you hear somebody say, how's your day? What do you say? Good. Why? Every single time somebody asks me how my day is, I say one of two things. It's fantastic, or if it was any better, there'd be two of me.
He does every single time, guys,
Yes.
every time.
And the reason is because what you say to yourself is what you believe. You gotta be really careful with your I am statements. You know what, here's a good one. I am not a morning person. Well, if you keep telling yourself that, you'll never be a morning person. Dude, when I was 20 years ago, I thought getting up at 9 was early.
Shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So, you gotta be really careful how you talk to yourself. You wouldn't talk to your worst enemy the way you talk to yourself. I'm no good, I'm a shit, I can't learn, I'm no good at books, I don't like that, I am. Well, okay, if that's what you say, that's exactly where you're gonna be. And if you don't wanna be there, then start saying something else. Now, what's interesting is once you creep over and you start seeing excellence, when you start seeing the E, you're like, wait a minute, this is starting to turn up. This is amazing. I can start to see the peaks of those mountains. I can see what it looks like up there. I can start to believe it. Now, this becomes belief. And here, the reason is because good is limited belief. How many people in the world operate with a limited belief? I can't do that. That's for them. That's somebody else. Blah, 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 blah. That's every excuse in the world. It's not for me. I wasn't given that. I didn't grow up that way. I didn't have a spoon in my mouth. Well, I'm here to tell you, trust me when I tell you that. I'll give you another statistic. 8 of all 10 billionaires in the world started with nothing. They weren't given shit. 8 of 10. Yeah, I get it. The other 2, they inherited it. So what? Cry about it. The other 8, they made it. 80% made it on their own. So you can't say that you don't have the opportunity, because you got the same opportunity that everybody else does. One of my best friends is from Bulgaria, and he came over to the United States when he was 15 years old. And I don't know if you guys are any of you are international or understand this, but in Europe, high school is called university. You guys know that? It's just a term. They don't have a term, high school. They call it university. So when he came over at 16 years old, he's 15, going on 16, he came over, he's like, well, I gotta go finish up my school. So he went and he looked for a university. And then he got accepted. He realized, after he was done, that he just completed college. Perception. graduated college at 19 years old, extremely successful right now, runs his own business, makes well over $1 million a year. And I talk to him all the time, and I'm like, his name's Ilo. I'm like, hey, I said, what do you think the differentiator is? And he's been saying this to me since, we've known each other for 27 years. And he's like, the only people that believe in the American dream are foreigners. How's that hit you in the face? Because it's right in front of you. You don't really see it, but you see it. When you live in a country that is depressed, or has a bad government, or you know, forced labor, or whatever, it doesn't matter. The land of opportunity is actually an opportunity. But yet we live in this thing and we're like, yeah, I guess. So really, only 20% look at what we have in front of us as an opportunity. So the question is, do you wanna be that 20%? Because now, to go from belief, get rid of your limiting beliefs, go to belief, and go to outstanding, this is the final effort. Everybody know who Michael Phelps is? Yes? Okay, cool. The difference when he won his last gold medal was 1/100th of a second. 1/100th of a second. The difference in between excellent and outstanding. What podium you stand on, where you're at. Put in the effort, and you get to go to the direction you wanna go. Did you want to talk about Rise, or did you want me to?
I think you're killing it, man. Keep going.
Alright. Let me ask you, before we go anywhere, before I go to this next section. What is the feeling that you have right now in the thought about what I'm saying? And I'll give you a couple frames. I'll give you a couple frames. This is bullshit. That's one there. Okay, there's that. There's, holy shit, I got a lot to do. There's that. There's another one that's like, I should've worn my brown pants. There's a, you know, am I ready for this? Is it, I can't wait? And I'm gonna go into, before you answer, I wanna say something that Dylan said. A lot of people believe that leadership means that you have to be strong, always show presence. You know, you want people to emulate you, so you can't show any weakness. Let me explain something really quick. That is not leadership at all. Leadership is being vulnerable, being able to show people the vulnerabilities that you have, so they understand that they themselves, maybe with similar or kind vulnerabilities, can make it to where you're at and even past where you're at. It's that relatability that Rebecca talked about earlier. So when you're in a room and you wanna be vulnerable, it's tough because you think people are gonna look at you differently. But then it goes back to what I said earlier. Do you wanna live internally or externally? Do you wanna give a shit about what anybody else thinks about you? Or are you just gonna stand up and say, this is me and this is the direction I'm going? Look, at 55, I can't even count the amount of times I've failed in my life. I have a PhD in failure. But the beauty about failure is you have two ways to look at it. Oh shit, oh misery, oh what is me? Or this thing is in front of me, what the hell am I supposed to learn out of this? So, we've been talking, I'm gonna wrap this in a second after you answer this question. What is the emotion, what is the thought, what is the feeling that's going through your head right now? Okay, am I built for this? Okay, good question. It's a great question, actually. What else?
How many challenges head on, you don't run from it,
How's that make you feel?
uncomfortable.
Why? What, well, let me ask a different question. What about that makes you feel uncomfortable?
The thought of not knowing where you're gonna end up, kinda like the TV series thing.
I don't know what, oh, right, the open loop,
Yeah.
not knowing. You know what not knowing is? Lack of clarity of vision. That's what not knowing is. So I'm going into the woods, no idea where the exit is. I'm just hoping I find it. So there's a solution to that, right? Put a direction in front of it. What else? Anybody? We're only here for the left side of the room. Right side, yeah, this would be the right side of the room, depending on your perspective.
Got a lot of work to do, like you said already.
What was the question?
how are you feeling right now about what we're talking about? And I gave some frames, like, holy shit, this is bullshit. You know what, I got a lot of work to do, I got this, I want more, when can I get started? I mean, any of those.
I'll speak for myself. It makes me feel overwhelmed. It also makes me feel excited. It makes me feel like there's an opportunity for me personally to grow. It also makes me feel like there's a big fucking mountain in front of me that I've gotta climb, because I know enough about myself to know I need to work on all this stuff.
How did you feel the first time that we decided, we met a few times, then we decided to work together? What was your feeling at that point, when you and I decided to work together?
Excited but skeptical, because I'm very guarded, and I was like, I bet this guy's full of shit. Well, it was 50/50.
Yeah, I get it.
But,
Now, that's honesty right
yeah.
there.
Anxious.
What's that?
Anxious of the unknown.
I love anxious. You know, I wanna tell you something about anxious. I love that word. I'm gonna go one step further and then I'm gonna bring you back. Depression, it's one coin with two sides, okay? Depression is one coin with two sides. One side of the coin is sadness, and the other side of the coin is anxiety, okay? And on the one side of the coin of depression and sadness is lack of choice. You're sad because you feel you're stuck. You feel that you can't get out of this. You feel like you have no out. That's lack of choice. So if that's lack of choice is sadness, what's anxiety? The other side, what's that?
Too many choices.
Too many choices. So too many choices is, well, there's that possibility, that possibility, that possibility, that possibility, and that possibility. You know what gets you out of anxiety? Picking one and stepping forward. That moment, that second. I'll give you a frame. Ready for this? You guys have, I lived at Cocoa Beach, by the way. I live right next to the rocket shop. So, you know the big tanks, the fuel tanks that they put on the rockets and send that shit up? So, of that, 50% of the fuel is used to get 5 feet off the ground. Think about that. 50% of the fuel is used just to get it 5 feet off the ground, not even as tall as me. The rest of the fuel gets you all the way to the moon. The hardest thing to do in life is start. How many times you're like, I'm gonna do that. You know what? I'm gonna do that. And then all of a sudden the excitement fades and you're like, guess I never did that. Now I'm gonna do that. Like, well, that's it. But the moment, look at it as getting out of bed. So the second your foot hits the floor, your brain stops saying, you could stay just another minute. So you go from, I could stay just another minute, and if you make the decision, the conscious decision to touch your foot to the floor, just touch it to the floor, that thought goes away. Because you're there already. You already did it. And once that one goes, then the next one goes, and before you know it, you're in the bathroom. That's life. That's everything in life. That's every single thing you do in life. I'm gonna bring up something that you're gonna learn, we're gonna talk about a lot as being a leader, and this is a loop that I'm just gonna close because you may be asking yourself, I've given you what are the traits of a leader, what are the things you gotta think about, but what are the tools? So the tools, the simple tools, and we'll go over this many, many times for people that are going into the leadership, and I think we'll develop a full leadership program so everybody can work their way through it and then we can elevate, but I want you to think about rise and rising through leadership. It's really easy to remember. This is what you're gonna think about, is you wanna take your people and you wanna rise them up through leadership. And remember, depth of bench is the fact that you want the people underneath you to be able to replace you. Now, in the world, that seems convoluted, right? Why would I train somebody so good that I'm gonna train myself out of a job? Because the people that move up in the world are the best trainers. Imagine this, if you don't train somebody to the best, what's the opposite of that? Now you got somebody crappy working on your team. What's the point of that? So yeah.
You can't move up unless you got someone to take your position.
Thank you, even a better way, a good, better perspective. Yeah, that's exactly right. You have to create your replacement, right? So think of it every time that they're there. And let's assume that where the depth of our bench goes from, you know, PM to foreman to crew lead to crew member, and no matter how many depth we get, you should, you know, I don't care what seat you're in, you should always be asking, what's the next level? If I'm sitting in a PM seat, I'm like, Dylan, when the hell are you gonna leave so I can become the president of this company? Cause that's my next question. You need to get the hell out, cause I want this. That's the where you should be. I don't care if you're starting out, you've been here for a week and you're on a crew, you're like, how do I get there? That's where I wanna go. How do I get to that? Okay, let's do it. Let's get there. But we can't be afraid of training our team better than we are. The best thing you could do is train somebody even better than you. You have your own faults, we all know it. If I can train somebody to be better than me, great, fantastic, because then I get to move up and they get to do this thing and they're gonna be, you know, I'm now responsible for them and they're gonna shine, which is gonna make me shine. So it just works, right? How do you do it? Rise. Number one is reflect. So, I'm way over. So reflect. This is where you help them and you explain to them the job. You work with them in daily. This is what you do. You give them the rules. You give them the lessons. Then the instruct. You teach the details. You make sure that they're focused on both efficiency and effectiveness, which I think Dee's gonna cover. Then you shadow them, you let them do it, you let them see how they're doing, you check in with them, and then you elevate them. What can you change, what is next, and we're gonna talk about RISE all the time. I give it to you because I just want you to understand the policy and program that you're gonna put in place to be able to manage other people and lead them to where they wanna go. Does that make sense? Alright, cool. And then we already did building the bench. So now, I'm gonna ask you a question, and this time I'm gonna require an answer. So be prepared, because if you don't volunteer, you'll be volunteering. I need you to ponder it for a second, and then I'm gonna let Dee take over. Everything we talked about, everything we went through, this is, by the way, today is welcome to leadership. So take what you saw today, intensify it by about 100, and that's what's gonna happen when you get into the leadership program here. Is we're gonna teach you everything you need to know. It's clear?
Yes, sir.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
So, let me ask this. You can write it down on your paper, and then we're gonna talk about it just for a brief second. What is the one thing that is in your mind right now that you would need to improve? The biggest rock in front of you that you need to get out of the way to be a great leader? What is the one trait, what is the one thing, the one habit, the one tap, which is a trait, attitude, or characteristic? What is the one thing that you currently hold that you knew if that moved out of your way, you'd be a great leader? Take a minute and write it down on that last page. It's under the wrap-up section on the last page. And Dee, I'm gonna start with you.
I thought you might.
Yep.
I know. For me, it's fear.
Explain that, elaborate on it, please.
I have fear over things that I can't control, like the state of the world, politics, the economy, the things that I just can't control. And I wanna take care of the people in my life that I care about. And, it prevents me from making decisions from anxiety of the unknown. So I have to figure out a way to get through that. Right?
What else? Anybody? Or I'm gonna start calling it.
Organization.
Yeah, you feel like you're a little disorganized?
A little, I can.
A
be
little
more-
lot,
yeah, I
bit
can
more
be more.
disorganized?
Yes, sir.
Alright, cool. I got it. Anybody else?
Confidence,
Yeah.
anxiety.
You know, confidence is really easy to solve. I had a lot of lack of confidence myself. Confidence is really, it's an easy frame. It's knowing what you know. So there's something you don't know, it's just you know. And then your confidence goes up. It's crazy how that works. Yeah.
For me, it's my own agenda. If
Mm.
I'm having a bad day and I wanna get it done early, I wanna go home, push everybody too hard, things like that. So problem myself. I wrote, I'm already to leave it on my paper.
Good for you. Confidence. Yeah, that's great, actually, that's interesting. We do push our own agenda a lot. A lot of times we are thinking about what's in it for us, and that's okay. There is that's natural, by the way, we all think that, like what's in it for us. But remember this, for those of you who have ever seen a track meet, can you run the 400 meter faster than you can run can you beat the 400 meter relay team? And the answer is no freaking way. Your team gets you where you wanna go a lot faster than you can ever get them to go to where you wanna go. Your team will get there faster. But that's great, that's awesome, thanks for that. What else?
Assertiveness, being assertive.
Assertive?
Communication.
Okay, communication, it's a skill, it's interesting. Shy people, people that are like, I don't know, or, you know, it all goes down to, communication skills, having the vernacular to be able to have a great conversation and understanding who you want it to come across, right? That just takes practice, by the way. Okay. What else?
Self-doubt,
Yeah, help me with that, what does that mean?
just questioning yourself on things, whether you can do it or not.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? The same thing? Well, this happens a lot, by the way, and so do I. And another frame of it is, everybody hear of a term called imposter syndrome? You ever heard of this? So imposter syndrome is where you don't think you wanna explain it? What's imposter syndrome?
I'm very familiar.
What's imposter syndrome?
It's a feeling of, I don't belong here, or I'm not qualified to do this, or I don't deserve this,
Or how did I get here?
or how did I get here?
Yeah.
Every day.
Imposter syndrome is interesting. More than 90% of CEOs in this country, 90% of CEOs in this country have imposter syndrome constantly. Like they're like, what the hell? How did I get to where I'm at? You make $1 million your first, in a year, you're like, how did I get here? You make $10 million, like, what the heck, this is nuts. You make $100 million, you're like, what, this is crazy. Now, I'm talking about numbers that are exorbitant, but let's just talk about just life in general. So you just move forward and you're like, what about this? But you're pushing this comfort zone. That comfort zone, you've heard it, but I don't want it to be, just off the cuff. When you're outside doing something you shouldn't do, this is I do difficult things. When you feel it, be thankful. Be thankful that you're asking yourself, like, do I have self-doubt? Because you're stepping into an area you've never stepped. You're like, wait a minute. This is a good thing. This is where I push myself. I had a fortunate opportunity to work with an Olympic coach. This guy's name is Ron Williams. He's a freaking genius. He just got back home from Paris in the last Olympics. And he's a really good friend of mine. And he says, and I love this frame, and what he teaches the Olympians, he's like, look, think of your life at 33%, a third, a third, and a third. A third of your life, you should be like, this freaking sucks. And a third of your life would be like, I got this, and you're cranking. And then in your third of your life, you should be like, this is way too easy. I love this. How am I making all this cash? Or whatever it is, whatever that thing is. And if you're off balance, something's wrong. If everything is too easy, guess what? It'll about to be taken away from you. Because you're not working hard enough, right? If everything is horrible, something's wrong with the machine. You gotta figure it out. You gotta look inside of it. What's wrong with this machine? I'm never having these shiny days. What's up with those days? And everything, if it's just consistent and you're kicking it and you don't have the bad days and you don't have the great days, you're headed towards burnout. So you gotta think about that. If you're in a 33% balance and you think about that level, you're pretty much right where you should be. That means you're going in the right direction. You're pushing yourself and things are normal. So by the way, that should be your new normal. What else?
Fear of disappointing those that rely upon them.
Yeah, disappointment's a big one. This comes back to the confidence thing. You're doing something new. You're gonna go out and try it. By the way, you're all gonna feel it. every single one of you are gonna feel that when you're out in the field. When, and I'll let you do the quick order, but when Dylan says go, and there's gonna be a rotation, I'm not gonna steal his thunder, but when he does that, you're gonna be like, okay, here it goes. I'm gonna give it everything I got. We're gonna give you as much knowledge as you possibly can, and then you'll screw it up. And by the way, just to be clear, you will. Be prepared for that. But then, that's okay. And then we look at it, analyze it, solve it, and move forward again. Yeah,
I just got a question, so like,
Shoot.
y'all know we're gonna fail. So is this failure like really failing, or is this an opportunity to learn and grow?
yeah, great perspective. There's a book by a guy, his name is Ryan Holiday, and he wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way. If you're not failing, you're not learning, right? Muscle failure gets you to the next level in working out, right?
It's a
Muscle-
lesson.
It's a lesson, and you have to, like I said, all great things that you want in life are on the other side of hard. And in this here, between here and 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 here, there's gonna be a lot of failures, a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less. Well, here's the interesting part. The failures will be bigger. There may be less of them, but they'll be bigger. Like, oh shit, I really fucked up.
Right.
So that's okay, because if you're learning from that and you're growing, that means you're pushing yourself. You can't get to wherever you're going without it. Failure, when you look at it, is when you can get to this frame. I'm gonna give you this. I'm gonna give you failure and fear. 3 A's and an L. So this is awareness. This is what's going on in the world. This is real. This is acceptance. This is the acceptance of reality. Holy crap, this is really happening. This is, no, forget my names. This is acceptance, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and do that, fold it in, and this is action. And when this is done, the L is leave it behind. And that gets you on the other side of fear. Because when you look at it, you understand, this is, a lot of people will come across something that is that really reality, is it not reality? You have to look at reality in the face. I'll teach this a lot, and we'll talk about this a lot in leadership, but yeah, you're absolutely right. When you can put yourself in the perspective of what am I supposed to learn from this, it's a different perspective. You actually appreciate it. And I know that sounds weird right now to a lot of you. If I'm not failing, and when I do fail, and something is going way off, at first, I will tell you, I get freaking pissed. And then I'm like, now what? And then I sit back and I'm like, hold up. What am I supposed to be learning from this? Where am I gonna grow from this? Because I'm gonna learn something. And then if I learn it, guess who I get to teach?
The next person.
You guys. And if you learn it, who are you gonna teach? The next person, right? It's about passing it down. I wanna thank you guys. I've taken way too much time, which I kinda had a feeling I was going to. Thanks for sticking with me without falling asleep. You're gonna see me around a lot, and I'm gonna get to know all of you in some frame or in some form. And I just wanna thank you for coming in today and taking your time. It shows and it speaks volumes to who you are. If you're sitting in this chair, you're sitting in this room, be clear. It speaks volumes to who you are as a human being, because this is not gonna be easy, but I promise you, it's gonna be excruciatingly rewarding. You guys good? Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I guess I need to try that cold plunge. I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was great.
Yeah.
We're gonna go through this last page real quick. It's the one that says rise on it. Okay. Kevin touched on some of this stuff, but this has helped me a lot over the years. And this is about building leaders, right? Not building followers. We want everybody on the team to be able to make decisions. We don't want one guy that's making all the decisions and everybody else is just looking to him or her. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Right? Navy SEALs, they train everybody on their team to identify a threat and react appropriately according to their team. And that's what we are. There are threats everywhere. There's competitors, there's problems, there's missions that we're on to complete. And we need everybody on the team learning and building and growing. This RISE method right here, reflect, instruct, shadow, and elevate. This is how we should all be operating, right? There's a problem, tell them what they need to do to fix it, and model it, show them.
Teach them.
Teach them, right. And instruct is teach the details, slow it down, make it understandable. Shadow, let them do it, and you observe it, right? So you talk to them about it, you show them how to do it with them, let them do it, you watch, and then at the end say, hey, this was great, this needs improvement, let's keep improving. It's very simple, but it's very effective. We've done this in the office when Rebecca came on board, and I had to teach her our mess before she straightened it out. Same things when I taught Charles and James everything they know about landscaping, I did the same thing with them, okay? Right here at the bottom, James Clear, Atomic Habits. If you have not read this book, this is probably the first book you should start with. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. What does that mean? We can have a goal that we're gonna build an airplane, right? But if we don't have a system that's gonna keep us on track, hint, SOPs, standard operating procedures, checks and balances, we're gonna fail, right? If you're on a diet and you wanna lose 20 pounds, but you've got a pack of Oreos on the counter every time you walk in the kitchen, what do you think's gonna happen, right? You go to a job and you gotta get the job done, but our trucks look like a bomb just went off. How are you gonna do your job, right? So we fall to the level of our systems, and we need these systems to be intact and efficient as possible. I think I'm gonna wrap this up with this productivity, and then we're gonna go over, some red flags here. Productivity, guys, at the bottom of the sheet. What is productivity? Does everybody see it down here? Quantity, quality, output. So quantity is how much of something we're doing, how many yards we're mowing, how much sod we're putting on the ground, how many zones of irrigation that we put in the day. That is the quantity. The quality is how good of a job did we do, right? Was it a 10 out of 10? Was it a 5 out of 10? It's these things together, plus your output, right? How fast do you do this? Over unit of time. So we need to do all of these things to be productive, okay? Down here at the bottom, there's efficiency and effectiveness. Doing the right things and effectiveness is doing the right things at the right time. These are two different things. You can be efficient and not effective, okay? For example, let's say, there's so many examples. Let's say y'all went to a job and you've got to mow the yard. Let's keep it simple. We're mowing the yard. The first thing they do is they blow everything, right? They might be doing a really good job blowing everything, but they're doing it at the wrong time, okay? So we need to be mindful of making sure we're doing things in the correct order. And as the lead, those decisions fall on you. The other thing I want you to think about, if you've got 4 people on a team and you're the lead, if you can make decisions that make those 3 people 33% more efficient, you've just replaced yourself. So any work you're doing on the job is a bonus. And that happens all the time. Whether it's making sure we have stuff in the shop or from the shop for the job, the logistics, helping your project manager make sure things are on task, communication. That efficiency is critically important to what we're doing. This team management and interpersonal communication, this is some outlines that, let me go through a couple of this real quick. Simon Sinek, is that how you say it? Sinek.
Yes, sir.
So this guy's got a really good podcast. It's actually very uplifting in the world nowadays, in my opinion. He talks all about leadership.
He's
His-
probably the leader of leadership in the last decade.
Yeah, there's some really, really powerful, just feel good, kind of reset my perspective podcasts I've heard from him. He says leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those people in your charge. I try to do this very hard here. I think most of you have seen me try to do this. Whether it's at work, outside of work, and that's what gives me the purpose and the, you know, the motivation to keep going. But it comes back to, just because you're a foreman or a lead or in management or whatever, it's not about barking orders. It's about serving other people, right? Bringing them up, so it brings the team up, so that we can all win, okay?
Teach, don't tell.
Teach, don't tell. I'm gonna go through these core principles for team management. Set the standard, model the behavior, effort and attitude expected from every team member. Address the underperformance immediately, with respect but with clarity. What TJ said a minute ago, being assertive, okay? Some people think assertive means aggressive. That is not what it means. That is my mantra for the last 5 years, is I need to be assertive but not aggressive. Hey James, what you did, it bothers me, the way that you handled that. Can we talk about that for a minute, right? Not, man, you better not be doing that shit, right? That's aggressive. Assertive is saying my part in a respectful way without, you know, starting a situation, but not bending over backwards. This is hard to do. It's very hard to do. You're on a job, it's hot, everybody's frustrated, but you've got to get the job done, right? Assertive but not aggressive. Communicate with clarity and purpose. Avoid vague language. Use exact terms when assigning tasks, timeframes, and expectations. This is my favorite communication tool, is the next thing I'm gonna say. Can you repeat back to me so that I know we're on the same page? This takes 15 seconds. This is probably the #1 tool you can use tomorrow for communication on the job. Walk around the job, go over it with your team, say, I want y'all to tell me what we're doing, and be quiet. See what they say. I would say 50% of the time, it's not what you just said, because communication is hard. Active listening is hard. When you verbally say something, that's difficult for multiple other people to be on the same page. So ask, what are we doing? Y'all tell me what we're doing. Make sure everybody's on the same page before you move forward. Use checklists and visuals when needed. That's part of the packet that is in your folder. There's a checklist on the back that should help you all with that. Stay emotionally neutral, okay? Frustration is a leadership liability, not ability, liability. Stay calm and direct. Remember what Kevin said a minute ago. If somebody's pissed off, it's usually not at you, right? That's the reason why. It's usually some other reason. Maybe they didn't sleep. Maybe somebody they know is sick. Maybe they've got problems at home. Maybe they're, you know, who knows? Approach it with curiosity, objectively, without emotion. If you're emotional, take a step back, take some deep breaths, pause. Remember, this is an opportunity for growth, whether it's for you, for the other person, or for both, okay? Feedback, this is good, micro briefing. Build skills, not output. Oreo method, right? Praise, constructive criticism, praise. Y'all heard me talk about this a million times, it's easy to remember. Hey Andrew, you did a great job with this project, you know, over here, installing these plants, but we need some work on, you know, the edging. We walked through that job, not you particularly, but y'all saw me do this. Praise, criticism, praise. And this can be team to team, guys, you know, it doesn't have to be, this does not apply just to the foreman or the crew lead. This is across the board. Protect our culture. I think everybody overall has been doing a good job with this. These are our values down here that we're out of room. Maybe I'll put them on the ceiling. Teamwork, resilience, unceasing growth, service, trustworthiness, or integrity, okay? Protect these things. If we don't, those of us who have been here for years, we've seen what happens, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty for us, and it's not pretty for our clients. So if somebody comes in, hold them accountable. Address issues immediately, but respectfully, okay? If If you cannot resolve them in the field, talk to your project manager. But as a lead, you will have the ability to determine who is on your team, okay? It's not gonna be like, hey, I need a new guy in here tomorrow, but if there's an issue, we are gonna give you the support you need to put the team together once you've fulfilled your part of the deal, which is everything we're talking about right now, okay? I feel like I'm missing a page. Where's the red flags? Last page, guys. Red flags to watch out for. These are things that if you are on a team here, you should all be watching out for this. One team member consistently isolated or not contributing, okay? Tasks being redone due to unclear instructions, like I just talked about, right? Passive comments like, I didn't know that, or nobody told me that. Well, is that true? If it is true, whose responsibility is that? If it's not true, they repeated it back to you, like I just said, and it's still not getting done, that's a big red flag. Because it's either a lack of attention, a lack of ability, a lack of training, or they just don't give a shit, right? Which we don't want here, because it's gonna make everybody else's job hard, right? But we've gotta do our part to build everybody here up, to help everybody, okay? To serve other people. What time is it? Well. Okay, guys, this is kind of surreal for me. I've envisioned something like this happening for years, so this is awesome. I am very grateful that each one of you are here.
You gonna address the rotation or not?
We'll talk about that Monday.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about how we're gonna do this rotation on Monday. But I want everybody to take what you've got, think about it, look inside yourself, and I hope, if nothing else, you can answer that one question that Kevin said. What is the one thing holding me back from being a better person? Okay? If you take nothing else away from this, and if somebody decides not to show up to work on Monday, I hope you can answer that question and work on it to help yourself, your families, and our world, okay? Thank you guys for being attentive. Please eat these donuts. We'll be outside for a few minutes if anybody wants to chat. Y'all have a great day.
I didn't get my donuts, and I want it. Where's it at?
Hey, try me to pick up his trash. Hey, if y'all.
Thought about it.
Hey, Joanna?
It's in there.
I got it, I cleaned it up. How you doing, sir? Oh, you need your pen back? Your pen back, there you go.
I can't feel my ass.
Yeah, that too.
One of them steps on.
15 phone calls, right?